Yeah, we're going to be starting up. It's 12 noon, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to Beaver Politics. This particular show is Breaking the Dam. I'm your host, Jana, and we're going to have this show is every Saturday, 12 noon Mountain Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please do remember that tapping is clapping. If you have an opportunity to tap the screen, it would be really appreciated. I am going to try to get to 20K today, which is a pretty big goal for me. Might not happen, but one can try, right? Let's see what else. If you can afford to gift, that would be really appreciated. Gifts help us grow our channel. And if we do have people on the panel, which we will at some point in a little bit, it would be great if you can gift the panelists because they put in a lot of emotional work. Um, let's see, anything else? If you can, if subscribing is within your means, we really appreciate subscriptions. They help us to grow our channel. It's around, I think it's under $5 a month. It's for something. And we would really appreciate any subscriptions to just help us grow and get the information and news out there. Um, I'll let you up, Smarshy, but I'm just finishing up here, so if you can mute for a bit. That is our intro. So today we're going to be talking about poverty and mental health. So I'm going to go over some information from some websites that are specialized in this area, um, and we will see what we find out. Okay, so let's start. The first I'm going to read a little bit from the Mental Health Commission of Canada on this, the mental health and the high cost of living. So let me just get this over here so I'm not looking around. The high cost of living in Canada has led to increased financial insecurity, pressures on food and housing affordability, and income inequality, which all significantly impact mental health and general well being. Financial security and mental health have always been closely linked. Negative mental health outcomes are more highly concentrated at lower income levels. So, the lower your income, the more it impacts your mental health. And we'll go through a few more detailed examples of that. Uh, and mental health problems and illness can lead to financial insecurity. And this is even in Canada, because even just your medications, if you don't have a medication plan, can cost you a lot of money. Inequalities in finances and other social determinants of health present barriers to accessing mental health supports in Canada. So we need to address a system wide response. With the federal government's focus on the Canada Disability Benefit and targeting funding for individuals with low incomes is promising, more comprehensive policies that target poverty and the high cost of living are needed to address the associated impacts on mental health. So they list some key insecurity areas. One of them is financial security. So, high inflation has made it hard for many households to meet their financial needs or to cover an unexpected expense. Poverty and low income put people at a greater risk for mental illness. And it worsens existing mental health conditions. So it keeps on building up on each other. The financial insecurity can affect the mental health, and then the mental health can affect the financial insecurity because it puts them more at risk of, say, losing their jobs or not being able to work. Let's see what else we've got here. Then significant barriers. The lower your income, the more barriers you have to reaching out to mental health. Because one reason is counselors in Canada are not necessarily free. It can cost up to $200 or more for one visit to see somebody for counseling. There are some free options. Maybe we can discuss that later if anyone's interested, but that's one of the problems. So then we've got access to mental health services is another challenge that we have in all of our provinces in Canada. And if you can, please do share this live. And remember, tapping is clapping to help get this live out there. So the high cost of living in Canada magnifies inequalities in access to mental health services and supports for the people who are most likely to need them. So people with a low income, right? And they are among the least likely to report having a regular primary care provider. So they don't have necessarily a regular doctor. And unless accessed with employment benefits. Most private health services have a high cost to them. And there are some free services and community-based services that are affordable, but a lot of people that are in these situations don't know about those resources. So it's important to know that there are some resources out there that can help you. Insecurity is an ongoing problem, food insecurity. It's become a nationwide problem with 5.8 million Canadians across 10 provinces living with food insecure households in 2021. And it results from not being able to meet day-to-day living costs, and that increases anxiety and depression symptoms. unaliving thoughts, and mental illness, including mood and eating disorders. So all of these things just kind of pile up on somebody who has a low income. Mental health related disabilities. In 2022, mental health disabilities were the fourth most prevalent type across Canada. So it is becoming an increasing problem. Those who are experiencing these disabilities, the rising cost of living has really intensified the inequality. They experience barriers to accessing benefits. There's a substantial gap between social assistance rates and the poverty line. Universal income, universal basic income. I'm going to plug that here because this would really help with a lot of these problems. The more access to food banks for long wait lists and affordable and supportive housing. Unaffordable housing. This is one I really want to focus on today is the housing issue because there's a lot of talk about that between PP and Carney's plan. Living in unsafe, insecure, or unaffordable housing has been known to impact mental health, substance use health, and well-being. That high cost of living contributes to the unhoused and precariously housed, who are more likely to experience poor mental health. I can tell you from people that I know that work in this field, people are basically getting not able to keep up with the rent, and then they have to find somewhere new, and then again they can't keep up with the rent and they have to find someone new, and it's just an ongoing cycle for people. And moving is expensive and stressful on top of that, and costly. So just something to think about. And then there are the intersectional considerations. Systemic inequalities and discrimination are combined with the high cost of living. They magnify mental health impacts and inequalities, such as increased burdens on food, housing, health, and mental health expenses. Inequities are experienced differently for First Nations, Inuit, Métis, rural and remote communities, newcomers, and racialized communities, 2S LGBTQ plus communities, women, men, youth, older adults, and unpaid caregivers. So all of those things build up. I'm looking to bring some people up on the panel. If you're interested in coming up and chatting about this and your thoughts on some of this, just let me know. Just request up in the box here. You just have to press on the little blue and pink guy at the bottom of the screen, and that will show me that you're interested in coming up. So I'm going to just talk some more until we get some guests. So let's talk about some key facts. 41% of respondents feel financial pressures are affecting their mental health. So that is a lot. That's more than a third of people in Canada. 23% are concerned about their ability to make rent or mortgage payments, leading to a high amount of anxiety. And I can tell you, I've been there with the mortgage payments, and it causes an incredible amount of stress when you're just making ends meet. 40% are struggling to adequately feed themselves or their families, which is impacting their mental health. So we have a lot of challenges there. And finally, 28% say the inability to pay is a reason for not accessing or accessing mental health care despite needing it. So let's start with Smarshi. Do you have any thoughts on what I've just said or any of this?
The housing insecurity or
Any of the how mental health impacts poverty, or how poverty, I should say,
okay.
they impact each other, but how poverty impacts mental health. If you don't have anything, that's
Um,
okay. Don't want to put you on the
no,
spot.
I just want to say it in the correct way. Um, Basically, the housing crisis is it can affect everybody, right? But the effects of what Carney wants to do next to
PP.
Pierre is P- Pierre wants to
He wants to help the
he,
wealthy.
he wants to help the corporational landlords, like the
Hmm. He wants
and
to
he
help people
doesn't
buy
want to help.
homes.
Exactly. And Carney wants to help people buy homes.
Yes, but the thing is, PP only wants to help people buy homes with his GST rebate. Um,
Right, but the GST rebate doesn't help the people; it
I
helps the
know.
landlords who
Hmm.
are just gonna keep hiking up the rent because they can.
Exactly. No, I had someone
So,
explain. I saw a video where someone explained it really well. The GST is only on new homes, right? You don't charge GST on homes that you're reselling. So the GST is only going to help people buying brand new homes. On top of that, um, it's the builders that generally waive the GST anyway, so they're just getting a bonus. And on top of that, so even if the builders don't, it's the builders who are getting that discount because they'll probably just take that money back with the pricing of the houses they're selling, right? So it's not really going to it's going to affect the builders. It's a bonus for the builders. It's a bonus for the house builders that are already out there, and it's a bonus for people who can afford to buy a house. And I do agree, like we need to work on that. And Carney is also taking the GST off of houses, so that's not going to be any different. But Carney's plan is to
They,
help build homes that are affordable, like rentals that are affordable, and keep them as part of the government so that it's not being hiked up by landlords. And that is a much better plan for the problem we have right now, because the biggest problem is low to middle income housing. Like if you have $500,000, you can buy yourself a house. That's not the problem. There are houses out there. The problem is the low income. That's just my
right.
take on it. Um,
Hi,
I
Hi,
think that
go
how
ahead,
are you?
Never Polyev.
I just had a question. So it's only on like brand new built homes?
GST is
It's,
only charged on brand new built homes, as far as I know. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong in the
you're,
comments, but that's the way it was when I bought my
you
new house. And I when I bought my second house, which was not new, I didn't pay GST on it.
oh, okay. I thought it was for
Let's do a
new
Google
home buyer.
okay.
just to see
Okay.
GST on used homes in Canada.
I think it's
Um,
you that's echoing.
the sale of used residential property in Canada is exempt from goods and services tax.
Oh, the sale of used ones.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
only applies if you're buying a brand new built home.
Oh, okay.
Does that make
Thank you.
sense? You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. I do like Mark Carney's plan because he wants to build wartime homes.
Exactly, and that's what we need.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to get
Thank you.
people housed in affordable housing, not big $500,000 homes. They can't afford that.
Yeah,
If you can afford that, there are homes.
yeah.
So yeah, it's only on the new GST rebate is only, or cutting the GST is only going to help people who can afford to buy new homes. And really, I'm Jana, it's you that's echoing. How can I fix that? Let me try
Because when
this.
she's speaking, I can hear her.
Can you hear me now? Is the echo gone?
Mute for a minute, if you can. Okay.
No, it's still
No,
echoing. It's marshy. Oh,
but
maybe.
it happens when, yeah.
It might be because I'll try putting my microphone on when you're talking and see if that helps. So go ahead, Smarsh.
Can anyone hear me? See? Completely gone.
I hear you. Yeah, so it is coming through her microphone, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to try muting and unmuting when people are talking.
No, and I wasn't trying to be rude. I was
No,
just.
no.
That's not rude. You're,
Yeah.
yeah, that don't. Someone's saying that's rude. That's not rude. Don't worry about it, Smarshy.
Oh, no.
Treaty, did you want to add anything to this?
Boy, do I ever. No. I just actually yes, like I think about so many things that you were just talking about. Number one, if it weren't for low income housing, I would have never been able to complete university. But another thing that really I thought about when you started talking was those of us that have struggled, like I would never consider myself to have experienced poverty, but definitely below the wealthy line, right? And I remember one year, like I think I only made when I was in university, and my taxes were I think $4,000 or something. And I think back and like, how did I live on that? But anyways, those of us that have experienced that, we know how to cope with it. And have you ever noticed how when people like that have struggled financially, when we do get money, it's like we blow through it so quickly, right? Because we know we want to spend some money, get some things we need, catch up on bills, pay it all up, and then we're back to being like back to the way it was. And I really think about this a lot and how, because we're accustomed to it and we're not afraid of being without. Because we've done it before, right? But another thing I was thinking about with the housing thing, I love that we're talking about building houses that will be affordable and accessible to most people, like and that meets the needs. We drive around in rural Alberta sometimes and you'll see these 5,000 square foot homes. I'll bet you maybe some of them have 4 kids or something, but likely not. And how much room do you need? How much resources that takes? So I always bring the environment conversation a little bit too, right? But I think about that. And maybe as we move through a time where we're gonna looking more at government housing and make that available again, that helps us learn to live within our means also. But yeah, so I just want to I think because I guess my point is like we need it. I'm happy to hear we're talking about that again because without Edmonton housing, I would never have been able to make it through university. And what a barrier. Housing should not be a barrier to my success. And we need to it's a human right. So I think this is great.
Yeah, and I had that experience. I moved out of my parents' house when I was a teenage, or not teenage. Well, actually, I did move out as a teenager and lived pretty poor. But I moved out to Toronto in my very, very early 20s, and I was living off of basically something just a hair above minimum wage job. And it was, things were tight. And it was like my husband at the time, he was a high-rise window cleaner and he was doing a low-rise building and fell off a ladder, dislocated his shoulder, and had to be off work. We if it hadn't been for my parents and his parents bailing us out, we would have been screwed, like completely. We'd have been homeless because losing his income because was I couldn't make rent by myself. There's just no way, and feed us and everything else. And honestly, I didn't know enough to go to a food bank at the time, I should have been utilizing something like that, and I wasn't. We just
Right.
yeah, we just made it by every single month we lived there
Right.
for 5 years, and that's what it was like living week by month by month.
And as parents now,
Yeah,
I don't know that we're financially able to help our kids when they get into those situations anymore. Like that, and that's unfortunate. Like if my daughter couldn't make her mortgage payment next month, I'm not confident I would be able to help her. But because my credit card is near the max, my line of credit is almost near the max. Like so, if something were to happen even to Perry and I, we might have a month, but that's it.
And that's the thing, like my parents, I give my dad a certain amount of money a month, and I'm on disability. But I have been trying my hardest to get myself to downsize, and I have. I've gotten rid of most of the stuff I don't want, most of the stuff I don't use. I've gotten rid of that. I just have one big tote in my closet that I have to go through, get through all that stuff, send it all away. And it's like we're in a food desert, but we're not in a food desert. It's just people are not, and I can't imagine not being. I can't even help my kid right now get through, pay for some of his schooling, even though I wish I could. You know, I think sometimes I'm more reliant on him than he is of me, and I feel bad as a parent because I can't give him the
it can be.
life he deserves.
Well, our parents were boomers, and they just had a different life.
They did.
My dad and mom had a completely different
You're
life
not
than I did.
wrong.
And you hear a lot of the 20, like PPs trying to appeal to the young men and 20-year-olds and what have you, saying that, back in the day, we could afford this. I couldn't. I would never have had my first home if my parents hadn't helped us out and my husband hadn't gone overseas and risked his life to get extra money because you get paid extra when you're overseas.
100%.
And if it weren't for
My
those two
mom
things,
helped me. Yep. I was going to add one more thing. I think about, because you were talking about how financial, we're echoing again,
Oh,
Jana.
it's because I have my mic on. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, I was thinking about like the financial or the impact that finances can have on our mental health. And I struggled with it for a long time. I'd get anxiety and stress out about bills and whatever. I have, and this is actually because my daughter and I talk a lot about it. And it's capitalism. And it serves capitalism for us to be in debt. This is how they created this society and system is wanting us to be in debt. So I just kind of like accept it like that now. I don't let it stress me out. And you know what? This is the way they built it. So this is the way it is. And I will live in my debt and that's fine, whatever. I do the best I can. And those are things because our wages don't go up with our needs. And
Can you guys hear me? Just be a minute then.
purge, because I'm really trying to get to a place where I'm getting rid of things too. Because that's baggage on my mental health.
How I did it was I looked around, and every time I turned around, I was bumping into something.
Oh.
Because I live in a low-income housing unit,
Mm-hmm.
I happen to not have as much space as I think I do.
Right.
So it started with my basement, then it started with my bedroom and my closet, and I got most of the stuff out. But I just have to go through that whole thing. So like this whole April, after I do my taxes and everything, I'm gonna
Right.
pull everything out of the closet. What I'm not using, what I'm not.
I know it's liberating.
It
I
is.
know,
I'm
and
doing
I.
some cleanup
Yeah.
too, and it
Oh,
feels good when you can get. I have a hard time starting. I have ADD, and I have a
me
hard time
too.
starting tasks. But if I get going, I've gotten a bunch of stuff cleared out because I need to declutter, and that can affect your mental health too. Clutter can make you feel
Right.
anxiety.
Absolutely.
And it was like I couldn't breathe in a sense. It was just, I needed to get that for me. I needed to do this for me. And I had already like piles of stuff I wanted to get rid of. So I'm going through like clothing. I'm going through stuff that I thought would fit me but doesn't fit me. And then I'm like, oh, I could keep this. And I'm like, no, just get rid of it. Like, don't use it. I now have this mindset that if I haven't used it in 6 months, it's gone. I'm not going to pay a lot of money for it. Then I'm going to start using it and start figuring out how to use it because I have an air fryer. I use that all the time. I don't even use my stove. I've used my stove maybe 3 times since I've got my air fryer
Wow, that's awesome.
because it's like,
I was going to add where I struggle with decluttering, and I agree, like what Jana's saying. It is. I feel for my husband because he really likes things less and I'm a more, and it comes from sentimentality, right? Like everything I have has got some sentimental attachment to it. But I also struggle with I don't want things to go to the landfill. So for me, like, right, that's my environment protection side of me. So I worry about that. Like, even if I'm taking things to the thrift store, I know there's a lot of people who aren't buying ornaments anymore because everybody wants this minimalization lifestyle. So how much that we take to the thrift stores and stuff to end up in landfill potentially because nobody wants it. And that's just an outcome of our consumption. But I know that's what's something that I struggle with and impacts my mental health is it's a barrier for me to try to declutter because then I feel guilty.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's hard.
honey,
I just want to interrupt for a sec. See, Phil, I don't know, or see if you're a friendly, let me know, because we're only taking friendlies right
it's
now. We're not
Curtis.
debating.
He
And
is
again,
Curtis.
it's Curtis. Do you know them? Can I bring them up? Are
Yeah,
they
he's a relative.
okay? We'll bring C up then. I just didn't want to bring up someone who's gonna. Last time I
Morning.
brought someone up, I didn't know they said the N word a bunch of times, and I had to drop
Oh
them,
my
and I
God,
got a
no,
warning.
I would not say anything of
Oh
that
no, that's
nature.
just
No,
why I'm careful. Did you want to add something, C?
I just got on. What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about housing and mental health and poverty. So the
Oh
effects
yeah,
of mental poverty on mental health, and housing is one area where that can
yeah.
affect.
Well, I see that on a daily basis in my own community.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough housing on the reserve,
Yeah.
and yeah, it affects people's mental health because you have like mold issues, and you have all people living in little trailers with no
Yep.
running water, electricity, and that affects people's mental health. Like if you're not working and you're in a little tiny little like those camper trailers, and if you have a bunch of people living in there, and people put
Mm-hmm.
little wood stoves in there and they survive there in the winter. I see a
Yeah.
whole bunch of them on the reserves, and there's just lack of housing, so people have to create their own little houses. They like little those little RVs that you hook up behind of a truck. Some people
Yeah.
just live in there all year.
Well, and you
You
have
know, they
people in Edmonton that living in tents in the River Valley.
yeah, tents and
Um,
everything. Yeah.
it's rough, and there have been fires because they use heaters. Because who could blame them?
Yeah.
It's -40 sometimes in the winter,
Yeah,
right?
and I know like some places like I heard like Lac La Biche, there's people living in the forest like that,
Mm-hmm.
and and the county or the municipality goes and shuts them down and moves everyone. Never that like they're always constantly going after people that make their little homes out in the bush.
So, what are your
Like,
thoughts? Do you have any thoughts? Have you read at all about Carney's plan versus PP's plan for housing?
to be honest, I haven't read anyone's platforms.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We were
So
just yeah,
yeah,
because PP's plan is to take the GST off houses. I think is it up to 500,000. I think he probably raised it now, um, but let's just say, but that and that's it. That's his housing plan is to get more homes built that are in the high range for people that can afford to buy houses. Whereas in Carney's plan is also to take off the GST, but to build um, like war styled housing, like we did back in when was it Treaty Bird? Was it in the 70s that we did that? It's been a while.
I'm not really sure, yeah, or even probably early 60s.
Early 60s, yeah. So we need to build more smaller homes that are affordable that the government rents to people at a not an exorbitant, landlord price, but at an affordable price. And that's what the Carney wants to do is invest money into modular homes that can be built quickly so that we can get people in houses sooner rather than later. And I think that's the smarter plan because, as I was saying, the problem isn't for people that can afford $500,000 homes. That isn't our problem. I could go on my website right now and find a house. The problem is for people who can't afford homes, and maybe houses and taking the GST off 5% is not going to change that for
Exactly.
anybody. Like,
I heard part of the plan is for them to build houses that are reasonably priced to sell.
yeah.
And then that money goes back into the government coffers to build more houses. Like $50,000 less even.
So yeah, like the Liberal Party housing plan. I'm just taking a look at it now. To grab. So they want to double the pace of new housing construction over 10 years, which is awesome. They want to build an average of 227,000 homes per year, or over the next over the past decade. Oh no, we have built an average of 227 homes. They want to double that, um, and they want to build 4 million homes over the next several years. Uh, they want to invest in. Let's see here. I don't want to read all of this. They're going to eliminate the GST for first-time home buyers under 1 million. That's fair. Address the housing need right now, and that's by building smaller houses quickly, so that they have something that they can rent. Yeah, I'm not reading this very well. If I can find a better, is it here? I found a simpler one to read earlier. Here we go. So they're going to act as a developer to build affordable housing at scale, including on public lands, because we need the land, and not paying for the land is going to help, right? They want to catalyze the housing industry by providing over 25 billion in financing to innovative prefabricated home builders in Canada, including those using Canadian technologies and resources like mass timber and softwood lumber to build faster, smarter, and more affordable and more sustainable homes, and provide 10 billion in low-cost financing and capital to affordable home builders. So basically getting those smaller homes built quickly for people that need them. And I think that's really what we need to be focusing on. And if anybody else that's watching right now wants to come up on the panel, just let me know. Just request multi-guest. I'd love to hear your stories, as well as your thoughts and opinions on this. Oh, just a little glitch there. We've got 14 people in the room, and if you can remember, tapping is clapping. Please do share this live if you haven't had a chance already. It's an important conversation, and it'd be lovely to get more people in here. If you do have a chance to subscribe, it's about $4 or somewhere between $4 and $5 a month, and it just helps support our channel. We also have a Discord and YouTube, so look for us on Discord and YouTube. So
We're just everywhere.
or just we're all over the place. We're all over the place now. So
We're still getting a little feedback.
oh,
If I could, I'd like to add to this conversation about the public
Please.
lands.
Go ahead.
So something to be mindful of is public lands, if they're crown lands, federal crown lands, or even provincial crown lands, also have the treaty obligations to them, right? And so that's oftentimes the only places we have left to practice rights. So we have to be able to be mindful of it. I'm not saying has to be a restricting factor, but it has to be something that we consider early on and figure out ways to incorporate Indigenous use. And I'm really hoping that these housing programs that they're going to embark on are green. You know, we have green energy homes. We're looking at rooftop gardens, maybe, or you know what I mean, and also the neighborhood. When they establish the neighborhood, you know, like poor people or low income people also deserve to have a nice neighborhood with trees and parks and green spaces and water and things like that. So I'm really hopeful that we're not just going to create potential little neighborhoods of, you know, just turn out looking like ghettos.
I think we need to focus more on multi-tiered housing where we have a mix in neighborhoods, right? Where the neighborhood you're building has housing for people low income, who have a low income, housing for moderate income, and maybe a little higher end stuff, but that it's a community built around that. Does that make sense? Rather than just having, you know, your rich areas and your poor areas, because that's what happens.
Absolutely.
So I agree with that 100%. And we absolutely have to consult with the Indigenous before doing any of this. Agreed as well. I made an assumption that he would be doing that, but we need to make that point just in case. Because he hasn't talked about the Indigenous as red tape yet, luckily, unlike PP. So just something to consider, but yeah, very important.
Yeah. I'm curious about what his approach is going to be because he hasn't said a lot.
No.
But I've been paying attention, like especially when it comes to the Indigenous involvement.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. He seems to be a respectful fellow. I would doubt that he would just bulldoze through this, but time will tell. It's hard to say when someone hasn't said anything yet. It just hasn't come up. I do hope that he brings up Indigenous issues during this campaign. He seems to be like, and it's pretty common with campaigns, they release things like in a schedule based on what their other guy is doing, right? So he's not releasing all of his platform at once by the sounds of it. Neither is PP, but PP's is more disturbing because he's not putting it in writing anywhere. You go to his website, unless something's changed, and if it has, let me know. If you go to the Conservative website, you get a survey. And once you do their survey, they let you see their plan from 2023, which has not been updated at all. So either nothing has changed since 2023, which isn't true because he's changing on a few things already, but he's not documenting any of his promises in writing. And that makes me wonder.
Have you looked at their policy declaration? It is on their website. Yeah.
Yeah, it's from 2023 though. Like they
Oh.
haven't updated it, is the thing.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's from, unless it's changed. Last time I looked, which was a few days ago, it was still 2023's plan that they have up there. So
Well,
nothing's changed from their
I'd
original
love to
plan.
join in the conversation.
Yes,
First of all,
Vanessa.
good morning.
Go
First of
ahead.
all, good morning.
I'm just
Is it
gonna,
echoing? Because I know that it was echoing on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and it's still morning here, anyways. And I'd like to say that I am coming gracefully from the Lheidli territory, and acknowledge that, since Treaty 6 just talked about how important it is to recognize that Indigenous rights are contractual rights supported by our courts, like it or not. Right? And so I want to offer respect to that, I'm starting to pay attention to that more when I'm listening now for that conversation. And I have read some of the policy declaration from 2023, 189 pages, and it does give you a good grip on who they are. Right, it really does. And I know it's not been updated, but they know it's not been updated. And they know that's what people are going in and looking at. So I don't see this as, a surprise. Like you say, they put out their policy their campaign a little bit at a time, week at a time, usually. But I wanted to come in because of a conversation earlier, and I don't want to be too long-winded here, but, when we pay our taxes, we are in we're in a social contract to give our money to the government for them to regulate and create safety for society. And safety includes housing, and it includes all the different levels of housing. And as late stage capitalism has kicked in, and now, basically everything is so expensive that there's no lower class, middle class, like everything is expensive for everybody unless you've really made it to the top. Well, it is their responsibility to take our money and stabilize this issue. And if they stabilize the housing, they stabilize crime. They stabilize mental health. They stabilize addiction work. They stabilize so many things with this one social problem. And I think when you look at the two plans, politically speaking, when you look at the two plans, Mark Carney's got a better plan because, the housing that was built after World War II still exists today, because they're good little houses.
I was gonna say, I lived in one on the base.
Yeah, base housing is a good.
It needed upgrading for sure, but it was a solid house and it served its purpose when I lived in the military housing. So I know what those houses are like. They need a little upgrading in the floor plan, but otherwise they do the trick. They're nice.
Right. So it's been proven in research study after research study that it is cheaper to house people in treatment, in low income housing, than it is to house them in a jail or in a hospital. And so whether you're putting, when you look at a bang for your dollar, it is the right approach is to stabilize through housing. It's just the answer to so many things. It is the culture war moral stuff that gets in the way. And that's what gets in the way of the vote. And that's really what, conservatives always show up because they're the ones, they call us, woke and, too much into social stuff. But the reason they're coming to the ballot is because they read that 186 page policy declaration. It's because they hate the same people as them. Right?
I wish they had read it because I think they need to know what they're aligning with, but they don't. And some of them do align with those values, but some of them I bet don't. There are many conservatives that probably have more centrist values and would love Carney if Carney were running for the Conservative Party. But because
we're figuring that out right now. We all thought they went to the dark side because they let it get to this fucking point, right? And now we're at crisis and we're starting to see who the centrists are and that they made a mistake aligning with the far, far right. Right? Anyways, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna try not to monologue.
No, that's okay. And I actually wanted to ask Treaty a question. Are you still with us, Treaty?
I am.
You may not be able to answer this, and it's slightly off topic, but it just came to mind. I keep meaning to ask you. PP's plan to cut the red tape, can he do that? Like cut your rights, Indigenous rights, do you think? Like, is there a way he could? Because he's talked about
He
that, and it's been
can
very
eliminate the
uncomfortable.
duty to consult. Yeah. If so, just we're getting echo again. So remember when Harper started to break down the Impact Assessment Act and the Fisheries Act and things like that? That was part of that design. So our rights are directly linked to government decisions. So if the government is either federal or provincial are making a decision and that may have an impact to a right, they have a legal obligation to talk to the Indigenous peoples whose rights are going to be impacted by that decision. So when you take out regulatory requirements and weaken regulation over environment, over water, over species at risk, whatever it might be, then you take away that legal obligation for government to have to talk to Indigenous groups about how their rights will be impacted, because it's directly linked to that decision making. So if there's no decision for the government to make, then there's no legal obligation for the government to talk to Indigenous people. And that's why they want to weaken regulations. And that's why we're the red tape.
Well, he's talked about building. He had his little commercial with his Johnny McDonald thing, which is a little of an obsession of his, talking about how he wants to build pipelines across and he wants to build this and that. And it's not that those things aren't necessarily good, but I worry about him bulldozing it through and hurting the environment in the process.
I worry about that too.
Yeah. And I just was wondering if the Indigenous are a protection against it. The odds are he's not going to get a majority government, so I don't think with the minority, if he did win, which I don't think he will, but just looking at worst case scenario, he would have a heck of a time getting anything passed.
Yeah.
At least.
I think there could be another worst case scenario. When I watch what goes on right next door to me with the Wet'suwet'en territory and the way they have the corporation was able to hire private military basically here in Canada and go in and act as, they were RCMP officers making money on the side through a private company. But that's regulated to be legal. And these people were very violent. That's my worry. But like, there was a young woman in Mrs. Radical's live and Frontline's live last night talking about this. The risk Indigenous people take in terms of having protests. This is the level of violence they'll get to and be celebrated by the far right. And as the far right becomes our government, that's the problem. I think that's a piece. And so, yeah. I don't know what to do.
It's a huge problem, and it scares me. But so the biggest thing I'm worried about right now is complacency, because we're ahead in the polls, and I'm just scared people aren't going to get out there and vote.
Yes.
And those polls mean nothing if you don't cast your vote.
That is so true.
We can have all the numbers in the world, and it's not going to mean a darn thing if people get complacent and don't get out like they did in the Ontario election. Mind you, the polls were pretty close to the outcome. Like JB did a great job with that. But I just want to remind people, you've got to get out and vote, because they could have swung Ontario if people had gotten off their butts, and potentially, but it didn't happen. The voter turnout was abysmal. Just wanted to tap on that. It's my biggest fear right now, is that people are just gonna go, oh, it's bad weather today. Enough people are voting for Carney, it'll be fine, right? We can't afford that.
When you talk about poverty and mental health, when I work as a social worker with people who are what would be considered frontline work, they were the unhoused or whatever. Their mental health, living with an inability to feed yourself or house yourself, and what that does to your mental psyche, their, mental illness results from that. People detach. They start, they can have disassociated states that can go to look what happened to Milgard in prison. He became schizophrenic in prison because of being imprisoned. So when people become imprisoned to this 4-block area in a downtown community because that's the only housing that's available to them through shelter systems, it is difficult. And they don't get to sleep properly. Nobody gets a comfy bed. People get assaulted, gets robbed. It's very dangerous for
Cats
women.
on the floor.
There's,
People have bugs, lice and other things. Like it's you get robbed. You have very few possessions. What you have means so much to you, and there's a risk of losing it, and that's hard.
yes, they don't accommodate a pet. And so there's so much to think about, but the mental health for these people deteriorate the longer they're in these kind of intense poverty systems. And mental health doesn't, it can get all the way to the point where you have that heavy addiction and what we see on the streets. But what happens before those people get there? How do they destabilize? I bet their housing story is a big piece of it along the way. Right? And now we have more people than ever that are on the brink of either being unhoused, they're precariously housed, or they have no security in the future, which is in and of itself is a grind on the psyche, right? And so people need to comfort themselves. This is where addiction could happen. They need to find ways to to make that angst move forward. So some people will get involved in the elections, right, and do something that kind of they see as positive to make a shift happen. But a lot of people are realizing just how little control they have in our big system. The existential threat is right here. And for some people, it's the first time they've ever experienced fear at this level. And so and for other people, they visited it and have moved on, with therapy or something, because people whose lives have been threatened, domestic violence, stuff like that, people who heal from all that, they are revisiting a lot at this point. So we need to take into consideration, I think a lot of what's happening is so reactionary when it
Yeah.
comes.
And I was going to say, like, just what's going on politically right now is affecting people's mental health greatly. I have a therapist. I'm good with that because I think everybody can use a therapist here and there. And they've been seeing tons of people based on this, like based on the economic threat and the threat of annexing and everything that's going on has caused them a lot of distress. So it's not, there are a lot more, counselors are seeing a lot of people that are feeling stressed by that. And that's the people that can afford to be seen by somebody. Imagine the people that can't, right? Because like I'm lucky, I have benefits.
Well, and imagine that we have a federal system that we elect who's willing to give money to provinces to support that. But at the province level, they redirect it into some friggin' private corporation's hands, right? And that, I think, that's very frustrating.
Well, just like Danielle Smith did here, they gave a bump to people with disabilities of $200 a month. She clawed it back.
Yeah, that was awful.
It was horrible. You don't, how do you take money from a disabled person? Mackenzie, she's right. Hopefully that's not to that. I think it's to something else. But it's, I can't imagine, like, and the popsicles, taking popsicles away from cancer kids. And of course she passed the buck and, it was a miscommunication. No, it wasn't. I don't believe that. No. I just believe you didn't think anybody would notice or say anything.
Yeah, it called out loud enough, right? It called out at that level, it doesn't matter.
Yep, she backed up the train because she got called out, not because she felt bad, not because it was the wrong thing to do, but because she got called out and it made her look bad. That's all she cares about. Just want to remind everyone, tapping is clapping. I hoping to get to at least 200 or 20, not 200, my goodness, that would be wild, 20K today. If you can gift the panelists as well, we really appreciate that. They put in a lot of emotional work. And if you have an opportunity to subscribe, we really appreciate that. Subscriptions are, how much are they, the missus? It's just under $5, isn't it?
Yeah, it's $4.99. Sometimes there's
$4.99.
sale.
Yeah. So we subscriptions are just once a month, and it helps us build this channel. It also
And
gets
you
you access to the Discord, which is awesome, and we are also on YouTube. So just some things to keep in mind. So yeah, if anybody else wants to come up and add to the conversation, just request up. It's just the pink and the blue guy on the bottom of your phone. Just click on that and let me know, and I will bring you up. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about some of the poverty issues. Let's see here. So some recommendations that were put forward by this commission are to strengthen the full range of income and benefit supports for people living in Canada and monitor their associated impacts on mental health. And this is again where a universal basic income would be an amazing thing to have here. It's worked in other countries, and it's a way to just lift up, lift up everything. So really would, I think that's, do you have any thoughts on the universal basic income, guys?
I'd love it.
Yeah. I
I
think
wish we had it.
Bring it on.
Bring it
There's
on.
basic
Like,
human rights that we should all have, in society. I think there should be no hunger in this country called Canada because we have trillions of dollars of resource wealth. No one in this country should go homeless or be hungry at night, and there should be no poverty. Maybe that's socialism, but I believe that's just human rights. That we should all have those basic needs. Everyone, regardless. Like I'm First Nations, and I see poverty on my reserves, and I see tons of resources being taken out of my territory every day. I see logging trucks. I see oil and gas. I see everything. Billions taken out while my people are, in poverty. Some of my people have wealth. The ones who are in businesses, who have whatever they're doing. Some people do are middle class or working class, but I do see a lot of poverty that shouldn't, be there, and there should be more opportunities for employment, jobs, or housing. Like before Europeans came, before contact, we didn't have homelessness. Everyone had their own teepee, and if anyone lacked in anything, we shared. I had extra moose meat, I'd go give it to the family. We didn't have moose meat. That was how we did things back then. We didn't hoard, a bunch, like 4 or 5 moose or a bunch of fish to ourselves. If other people were in need in our tribe or in our group, we would feed them. Make sure everybody had, we all shared everything. And we didn't accumulate wealth, and we had, it was our culture. Now, under this capitalist system, it's all about hoarding wealth, And while people are out in the cold, have nowhere to live, sleeping on the streets or living in little tents under a tree somewhere and then getting evicted by police off their lands, traditional lands. Indigenous people are being removed off the lands, and they're trying to live somewhere. They say, "Oh, that's not your land. That's not treaty land, or that's not reserve land." They say it's crown land, and I see so many of these things going on in this country right now. I can't hear you. Your mic is on mute.
yeah, I was just saying I'm looking up some information on universal basic income, just to see what countries may have it right now while you guys are talking. And it's been tested in Finland, and it had significant benefits to mental health there.
You know what I think about it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
What a way to demonstrate that the country values its citizens. Right? That shows us that we're valued as Canadian citizens, that our government recognizes that some of us may be struggling, and we can contribute. That little bit of extra income can also have an impact on economies. So I think it's a great thing.
And I think it goes back to that basic social contract, right? We are giving our money to the government to help, to make sure that our society is secure and stable and that nobody lacks for these basics, right? So we give you our work and our money, and in return, you're supposed to come up with some ideas for basic housing. And they let that go. They created this problem, but that doesn't mean it can't be fixed. And
And so here we go again, right? Here we go again. But it's been done before, so I do feel hopeful because of the poll numbers that we're going to have a government that's going to put more into this than, and continue that pattern.
At least continue to explore it as an option and do some research, like really, really dig into it and see. I don't expect it in Carney's first term, but I think in his second, it's something that could really happen. We'll see. Crotty in my basement, did you want to add to this?
I was gonna listen for a sec or two instead of trying to
Okay, no problem.
jump right in. I'm trying to mute myself too, but I can't seem
I
to.
can mute you.
So I do apologize if there's any.
Oh, I muted you. There you go. Sorry. Yeah, so let's look at this. Mental health went up. Statistical significance, 99.9% statistically significant to be a positive impact on individuals' mental health. 36% is how much it increased, 12% for physical health with a 95% statistical significance. And it did actually help with employment, oddly enough. It went up, employment went up 4%. So what it didn't help was with trust in Finland. Let's see. Alaska apparently has something that they're trying. They have a form. The U.S. state of Alaska has been running a form of guaranteed universal income since 1982. I didn't know this. I don't know if it's still running it. I'm sure Trump will get rid of it if it is. Every resident in the state, including children, receives an annual payment from the Alaska Federal Fund. The payment varies depending on oil prices, but is normally between $1,000 to $2,000. The payment for 2021 was $1,114, and I don't know if that's a month or a year. They don't state here, but generally speaking, it's definitely something worth looking into further. And let's see, we've got so let's look at some other stuff here. Where's my okay? So let's talk about number 2 suggestion. They recommend provide new national housing strategy funding for Housing First and supportive housing programs for people living with mental health concerns. So important. And I don't think this is going to come out in the campaign, but I'm hoping, because when you're struggling with your mental health, especially if you're struggling with something that can lead to episodes like schizophrenia, for example, where maybe you're yelling or talking to your walls, it's hard to keep people like that housed because neighbors complain. So about the noise, and also because they just need some people with, especially if they've been houseless for a long time, they need help getting back into being housed because they've gotten into it's almost a way of life when you're houseless for a while, right? You get used to your community and your routines and all of that stuff living on the streets, that you feel kind of like a lot of people feel antsy or lonely when they're suddenly unhoused or suddenly housed. Does that make sense, Mrs.? I think you might know more about that. Oh, maybe Mrs. not still here.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Because you've worked with, is it hard to readjust to being housed?
Absolutely. And, mental health issues like hoarding is another serious kind of problem that when you're working at finding housing for people with mental health issues that need an advocate, that need to have somebody that will reassure the landlord, right? But if you do encounter problems, what services are available to help somebody at that level, right? Like that example flashed in my head. I've seen that a few times. It's not as uncommon as people might think, right? And subsidized housing was part of, when they deinstitutionalized for mental health. And what they did is they set up the shelter system as the way to catch these people. It was cruel. And when it happened in British Columbia under they were called Liberals, but they were really far-right conservatives, Reform, and those kind of people. But Christy Clark and Gordon Campbell dismantled that system, and people were rehoused, and not necessarily in the best way. And I think finally people who are now have never been, who've never thought about the housing stuff,
up until a couple of years ago, right? This is all new. Suddenly there's this group of people paying attention and they know that that's what their bottom line could be. They know now the depravity within our systems, right? Like they want intervention before they lose their mansion. And when it's not there, they're like, what? You know, and then it starts going down from there, especially with healthcare and suddenly realizing the expenses that you're expected to cover. Your parents are going in long-term care. We're taking 80% of their income. You don't get it. So I think, you know, people are suddenly aware of the depravities within the system. But here's my existential threat. We became aware of that grotesquely when they covered Ontario during COVID and the depravity within the long-term care system, right? We thought they'd fix that. And what did they do? This same contractor got a bigger contract from Doug Ford. Same people. So there's fears when Conservatives get elected, folks. There's
Frustrating.
this is where the existential threat comes in, right? And I must bow the conversation. It's been exciting to talk about this. And thank you to the guests that have come up and supported GDC.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And yeah, like it's the government, we need to do better for the houseless. But we need to come with an education of how to, like social workers who know the challenges they're going to face and having them work with people. You just can't take someone off the street, plop them into an apartment and move on. It doesn't work. In most,
No,
like it can work once in a while, but it's not. They need and they deserve some support, some level of social support for getting used to and transitioning to a more stable housing.
You know, I'm going to talk about a client and, you know, a situation that took place where this woman led a life where, you know, they worked in trades and then, you know, illness befell them and he passed away. And then she couldn't keep their place on her own. And you know, she had to move out and there was no options. She had to go into a shelter and she's like 60 years old and doesn't understand. And the shelters support a lot of women coming out of the prison systems, right? And so it can be a really rough, tough place to be. She didn't sleep for 2 months till we could get her housing, right? Like just people, like I don't think when people say, oh, they're struggling with housing, what it actually looks like close up, it is a horrifying situation. And it's great if you can buy a van and you can get a trailer. Maybe you're still just not quite there, but there's so many people that, yeah, we can catch before they get to those points. And I'm hoping the new policies end up rebuilding that because it wasn't that long ago. Like, and I'm talking, you know, back before Harper came in power, it wasn't that long ago that we were kind of on track with this stuff, right? We were.
We have like housing first programs in my city, for example, but the problem is that it's just not enough. The wait lists are years.
Yeah.
So it's great that we have a wait list, but the wait lists are years. So this person has to continue, you know, at best, sofa or couch surfing is what we call it here. And at worst, ends up in a shelter or living in the River Valley, you know? And
For people you know, to take away something concrete from this conversation, I live in a community of 80,000 and there's almost always some kind of advocacy committee that meets together and they discuss their most high needs clients. And I had the privilege of being able to go to that and then present, you know, the different situations that people were in, and we triaged. We triaged and we kept in touch with BC Housing Daily, and there's all these things going on, right? So sometimes community systems has these things in place, but like you said, the lineups and the wait lists and stuff, and sometimes there's ways to be the squeaky wheel within those systems, which is what I like doing. Anyways, I love you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Good show.
Thank you. Are you staying or dropping?
No, I got to drop now.
Okay, have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Karate in my basement, did you want to add anything? Like your thoughts on universal basic income or housing right now in Alberta or the houseless? Okay, so let's move on to, we need to promote and invest in an adequate supply of more affordable, and that this is key, more affordable, safe, high quality and nutritious foods for Canadians with low incomes and mental health concerns. Food, we do have a food problem right now, and part of the problem is that Galen Weston has a monopoly, and it has nothing to do with the government in particular that is in power right now. And I don't know how we tackle that. Does anyone know much about the whole Galen Weston thing on the panel? Or if you're in the chat and want to come up and talk about it, let me know. But my understanding is that Weston, the person that does their, what's the word I'm looking for, lobbying, is the same person that is with PP. Yeah, so PP's, I think it's PP's campaign manager, isn't it, that did the lobbying for Galen Weston. So if that's true, let's see, Weston, Galen Weston. Did you want to add anything? Welcome Healing Through Meditation. Did you want to add anything while I'm looking this up?
Karate in the basement wanted to talk to you, but you muted him.
Oh, let me unmute him. I'll give him a chance. Thank you for telling me. I'll let him talk first. Or
You're welcome. You bet.
Karate in my basement. Go ahead. So sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm kind of new to this myself, so I'm trying to just interact with the community better and start engaging more. But so thanks for having me. I grew up in Ontario, so I grew up with the Weston family.
Yeah, me too.
I've never liked them. But I grew up poor in an Irish community, so I mean, we don't really like rich people like that anyways who own too much. I think universal income could be a great thing. I think also it's a system that we need to change too. So there shouldn't be a need for universal basic income, but
there is right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there is now, yeah, but like I also wonder how much that'll affect inflation, but I don't really know much about that stuff enough to argue about it. And then I also feel like if they can give $20 billion in subsidies to oil and gas, then why can't we get some of that? What was the other thing? I can't remember what the other topic was. I'm sorry. Are you still there? Or did I blank out? Hello?
I keep muting myself because I create an echo. We were talking about housing and making affordable housing versus PP's plan of just taking the GST off of brand new homes for people that can afford them. And I was just countering with Pierre Carney's plan is to build actual affordable housing, which would a lot of which would probably be rentals that the government would own, but at least they would be lower cost housing availability in the country. And I think that's what we need more than we need big brand new homes. If I have 500,000, I can go on the internet and buy myself a home right now. That's not a problem. This isn't the housing problem isn't about people that can afford those houses. It's about the people that can't. In most of Canada, I'm sure there are some exceptions in different areas, but in most of Canada, that seems to be the big problem.
Well, and with NIMBYs, it's a deliberate attack on affordability too. It's not, and I imagine too with bigger companies like BlackRock and other places like that buying up properties, it's a deliberate intent to make it unaffordable for most people.
Yeah, well, like
smaller starter
prices are like ridiculous.
Right, like when I bought my house, it was $300,000, and it's an 1,100 square foot house, which isn't that big, But those houses are gone.
Yeah.
And they've torn them down to put up 3,000 square foot homes that nobody can afford.
Well, exactly. Like,
It's
what's the point in investing in housing that nobody can afford? And that's what PP's plan is. And that's not going
yeah,
to help the lower, even the low mid income people at all. It's not even going to like if you can afford a $500,000 house, the 5% GST isn't going to make or break your deal. You might have to buy a slightly smaller house or something in your budget. Whereas
and chances
I'm
are you
more
don't even have to do
concerned.
that.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the people that buying a house is just not going to ever happen, and they have nowhere to live, or not going to happen anytime soon, and they have nowhere to live. Like, we need to get people housed first.
And the people that can't afford affordable housing anyways.
And yeah,
Like,
we need to figure stuff out for them. Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing being built in that direction, and I think it's like I said, like it's almost not being built on purpose.
So,
You know, like these big, huge tenement properties that used to exist in the 80s and 90s that aren't getting rebuilt. You know, the low income housing that people used to be able to take advantage of isn't there anymore either.
yeah. Let's give healing through meditation a chance to add in.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. Are you there, healing?
Hi. Yes. It is also my understanding, going back to the low cost housing that PP is promising to take the GST off. I think I read it has to be $325,000 or $350,000 house, and you also need to have a rental suite in it. So unless you're willing to buy a house that you're willing to rent a suite in the basement or part of it upstairs with you, you don't qualify for it. And this is my understanding of it. And I looked it up because people were arguing with me that he's going to make houses more affordable for people. And I said, yeah. I happened to be at someone's house when the doorbell rang. Conservatives came and handed them a little pamphlet and their card, and the lady of the house pointed to that part, no GST on housing. And I said, yeah, look it up, go to the conservative website if you want, look it up, and this is what it's for. So just those words, people are believing what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and what PP is saying without doing any research. And I've asked a question a couple of times to several conservatives and to several liberals. Why is it that the conservatives believe everything the cons say? Their name should tell you all, the cons, but they don't believe anything the liberals say. And it's just mind-boggling to me that there are that many people that don't research. And they're still blaming
They take people at their
Trudeau.
word. And PP, he lies, but mostly he misleads.
Yeah,
He says things that are misleading. So there's truth in it. It's kind of like Trump does with his math. Like, it's misleading math that doesn't actually mean anything.
Can you really
Right.
call it math?
Pardon me?
Can you really call that math?
Yeah, exactly. It's incredibly misleading and doesn't actually, like his 15% tax cut, for example, is not a 15% tax cut. It's a 2.25% tax cut. Where did he
He
get
is the
15?
epitome.
Yeah.
He's the
But that's
epitome
okay.
of math ain't mathing.
Yeah, the math.
but don't forget, he's also taxing the penguins, right? So what does that tell you?
Leave the penguins alone.
Well, the rumor has it he used ChatGPT to do his whole plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh, that
this
figures.
is the level that we're at right now, that the president and the government of the United States is using ChatGPT because they're too lazy to do their own work.
I think it's also important to point out that the media really does a good job of making it seem like both arguments have equal value when it clearly doesn't. You know, like talking about PP's, even just his gaffes. You know, they don't cover it the same, or when they do cover it, they make it like, oh, but Trudeau does this. You know, and that lends a lot of credibility where it shouldn't be.
You know, I saw a video that Obama was talking on. He asked a simple question. What do you think would have happened had any of this happened during my administration?
That's exactly it. Tan suit.
Right? Mm-hmm.
They lost their shit over him wearing a tan suit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really, they're just mad because a black guy was in there.
Oh yeah, but they picked on him for everything, so it was definitely not cool. And then and some people are saying, like, and I've heard some people saying online that this is kind of what's happening with Trump is the backlash of Obama, because the people that didn't want Obama because
100%.
they're racist, backlashed and gave us Trump.
Well, I hope they're
Here we
happy.
are. And here we are, with the taxing of penguins and kicking off, and basically, like, our stock markets are all plummeting. They're crashing out, thanks to Trump. And I just, thank goodness, I have a mutual fund I'm scared to actually look at, because I don't think I'm invested in American stuff, but I don't remember, because I did this like 14 years ago and I don't remember anymore. So who knows, I might have lost money myself. I should look next week. I'm curious, and at the very least, maybe talk to them and make sure to get my stuff into Canadian made if it's not. But I mean, it is what it is. If I've lost money, I can't do much about it now. But a lot of people are suffering because that, like, a lot of people in the States, their 401ks are dropping. You know, their investments, and he's hurting
That's so
people.
scary.
He doesn't care. He just doesn't care.
You know, it's funny you bring this up.
Mhm.
Let's see, I think it's like 10 days before it first dropped the first time.
Mhm.
I called my bank freaking out.
Yeah.
Fell all my stuff. And when they did, I was able to pull all my
Good for you.
investments
Faster than me.
about a week before it dropped.
Yeah.
Oh, phew.
Wow.
I don't
Now
have a
you're
lot
lucky.
invested, but I do have some, and I'm, like I said, I'm scared to look because I can't remember if there are American companies in there or not. I would veer towards Canada, so I'm thinking no, but I'll find out.
Well, Scott 59 has it correct when he says everyone has lost.
Yeah, GICs are safe. You're right, Scott. That's pretty much your only, and that's where most of my stuff is in GIC, so I know it's safe. But I've got some in mutual funds, a small amount that I get from my employer. So I'm going to have to check my mutual funds and see how that is.
But aren't GICs tied into treasury bonds?
Pardon me?
Are GICs not tied to treasury bonds?
They're guaranteed by your bank, though.
Fair
So,
enough.
yeah, they are guaranteed by the bank. So even if the bank loses, you shouldn't be losing.
I
Because
did see projections of what it's going to be for losses if the tariffs stay in, and it's apparently like $2,500 per household per year in Canada.
yeah. And I just lost my thought there. It's going to be hard on everybody. Like they're losing big time in the United States, and he's saying it's going to be for some greater good, and that just to wait, he knows what he's doing. But yet, the world economists are, I think it's at a 60% now that there's going to end up being a recession in the States. There's 60% short likelihood now.
So does people know why he's doing it? Because I think I do. It's
Oh, I'd love to
Peter
hear your
Thiel.
theory.
Have you heard about that? About how Theocracy and Peter Thiel and all them want to crash and change the petrodollar to some kind of Bitcoin bullshit?
Yeah, that's a theory. That he is purposely tanking the economy.
Yeah.
In an attempt to, well, first of all, he's changing the classes. There's not going to be middle class when he's done with this. There's going to be rich and poor.
Yeah.
When he's done with this, that's his plan. He's getting rid of middle class. And apparently, yes, he wants Bitcoin to be because I don't know what his motive is for that, because I don't know anything about Bitcoin. I have zero interest in it. But he wants to make Bitcoin because of Musk, right? And he owns his own Bitcoin, and so does his wife. Like it's wild how much he's gaining from doing this, but the people that follow him don't seem to care. They just defend him no matter what.
Have you heard of the podcast Behind the Bastards?
Oh, the what?
Behind the Bastards?
No.
it's a great little podcast, but they do an in-depth podcast on Peter Thiel,
Okay.
who's like Elon Musk, but
Right.
smarter, not much. But yeah, and there's a good explanation as to why he wants to change it to a cryptocurrency.
I'll look into that. Thank you. I wanted to give the
Yeah.
Real Native a chance to talk, actually, because he hasn't had a chance yet to talk much. Did you want to add anything? Hi.
Hi, how's it going, Jana?
Pretty good. Thank you for coming up.
Not really. The whole housing thing is, people, I notice, still talk about it like it's a federal issue, but from what I understand, it's still provincial.
It is.
Yeah. But
It's,
yet people keep bringing up housing like it's the Prime Minister's responsibility.
no,
It's,
it isn't. They delve the money out to the provinces, and the provinces are supposed to spend it. And I don't know if that's going to be the case with Carney's new plan. It sounds like he's going to build federal housing.
yeah, like, Danielle Smith was offered a subsidizing for Alberta housing,
Yep.
and she refused it because she didn't want to be told where to spend that money.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the PP has advised all his ministers to not use plans that are in place by the federal government under Trudeau that could have helped people with a low income get housing. And
Exactly.
so if you think PP is for people with a low income, you're definitely not paying attention. Gracie, did you want to come up? Let me see if I can invite you. There you go.
Gracie
I
was
sent you an
awesome
invite,
last.
Gracie. But
This is only my second time meeting Gracie.
pardon me? There's nobody.
Only my second time meeting Gracie. I met her last night.
Oh, did you? Gracie's very knowledgeable.
Yeah. She's awesome.
Yeah, I've watched her show. I follow her, and she's pretty awesome. I invited you up if you want to come up, Gracie. If you don't, that's okay. Oh, that's a clapping hand. I thought you were waving. Okay. Yeah, like the housing, it's we're going to be doing. It sounds like Carney's going to do something federally this time because maybe he's realized that giving the money to provinces like Alberta isn't actually helping because she's not spending the money appropriately.
Well, she wants to spend the money on ONG, and they're trying to tell her, like, you got to spend it on housing. And it seems to me like if she can't spend it on ONG, she doesn't want it.
Exactly. She can't spend it how she wants. And we had a challenge here. I've talked about this before. Edmonton, the city center airport is on prime land. They closed it down to move the flights all to the international airport. So there's this big piece of land that's owned by the city and the province, both manage it, and they're building high-end high-rises. It would have been a perfect place. Like, it's not quite downtown, but it is. It would have been a
I
great
actually
place for
drove by
low-income
there.
housing.
I actually drove by there last week, and I saw the apartments they're building.
Yeah, they're building higher-end apartments there, as far as I know, and that would have been a great place for some mixed residences, like some higher, like, or co-op housing would have been fantastic, something like that, you know.
That's
But
what I
instead,
mean. There.
pardon me.
Sorry, I forgot I wasn't.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So we need to look at more stuff like that. Let's take a look at my slides here. So we talked about more nutritious foods. Co-create an implementation plan with the people living with the mental health related disabilities for the Canada Disability Benefit. Don't know, we do have the Canada Disability Benefit, so that's being worked on. Reduce financial barriers in accessing to services by dedicating a significant proportion of the new tailored transfers to mental health and substance use health. We do need more, we need a lot more money in mental health. There should be more or quicker access to free counseling. Right now, if I can speak only for my province, but in Alberta, if you want to see a counselor through Alberta Health Services, you're going to be waiting a couple of months for an addiction or mental health counselor. If you're lucky, a couple of months. If you need to see a psychiatrist, it could be a year. It could be longer. The wait lists
I
are
can
really
also
long.
point out with that in Alberta
Yeah.
that they only do that for a certain amount of sessions with a psychologist,
Yeah.
and then they'll refer you back to the addictions counselor. Who
Yeah.
try their best, but they're not. They're addictions counselors.
Exactly, that's their specialty. So if you need counseling for something else like mental health, anxiety, depression, some, anything like that,
Exactly.
it takes a long time to get in to see a counselor. There are free options. I just want to mention that online. There are some options with grad students, free of charge online that you can find. If anybody is listening and wants that, just PM me or something, or call 211. 211 is a fantastic resource for finding those places. But again, those are usually limited to maybe 10 to 12 sessions. So if you need to see someone long term, that's not necessarily going to work. Still, I strongly encourage people to do it. It's better than nothing, and you can get somewhere with 12 sessions, but it's still not optimum. And some people want to see someone in person, and finding someone in person that is free is very challenging. You can find some that work sliding scale, which means they base what they charge off of your income. But even that can be too high for some people. So let's see here. I'm just reading the last stuff. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the fact that mental health, let's see here. I'm looking at perceived mental health care needs, and this is from a Government of Canada website. And the article is Mental Health Inequalities by Income in Canada, just to demonstrate the differences. So total household income, I'm just going to look at the chart here. So for people in the highest perceived needs, for females and males, so people with the lower incomes do perceive that they need help. So 14 out of 100 people, 14 fewer adults living in the lowest income group reported being satisfied with life as compared to adults in the highest group. So that's 14% of people in lower income feel that pressure more and feel that it adds to their depression and their mental health in a negative way. And that's life satisfaction as well. People who have a lower income do not feel as satisfied with their life. They would say they're 83% satisfied, whereas in someone with the higher income or a higher end of the income scale that they used, 97% feel satisfied. So that's a fairly substantial difference. That's a 14% difference. Anxiety disorders. Adults living in the lowest income group reported having anxiety disorders at a rate that is 2.4 times that of adults in the highest income group. And women experienced higher rates of anxiety disorders compared to men. That's pretty common in psychology. Nearly double that of men. So women stress about it that much more. And it's really understandable that if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't know if you're going to make rent next month and you don't know if you have enough money to buy milk for your kids, you're going to be stressed. And for whatever reason, women are more prone to anxiety disorders than men, and depression as well. So just something to note. But 2.4 times is pretty significant that it costs that. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I think honestly, it stems into capitalism and the fact that it brings that trauma. They've, I think, proven in studies that children have suffered at least a debilitation in their education, if not outright brain damage from being poor, or regression at least. And I think that's true for adults too.
Yeah. Just asking. Show the Hairline wants to join as a guest. I was just asking if they're friendly or not, because I'm might take ops actually at this point. I could, but just like to know who I'm bringing up. Make sure they're not gonna. I had an incident last week where someone just came up and said the N word like 10 times until I could get them out. Let's see. So show the Hairline. Let's. I will invite you. You just have to accept the invite. There you go. Hi, Show the Hairline. Can you tell me your age? Hello, you're up.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, can you just tell us your age before you start? It's just a TikTok rule. I've known everybody else's age up till now.
Sure, I can help with that. What's their name?
Oh, it's ChatGPT. It's a bot. How interesting.
Wow.
I've never had this happen. Are
I've
you
never
a bot?
seen that interaction before.
Show the hairline. Are you a bot? Because you're not saying anything. Okay, I'm
I
gonna
can't
disconnect.
show you anything, but I'm. Of course. What do you need help with?
Yeah, somebody's got it on
Yeah,
chat
that's
GPT.
Chat GP.
So we're gonna disconnect them.
GPT.
Okay. So we were talking again about that. Let's see here. I've got some more
Why
information.
did that make my skin crawl?
I know it was kind of creepy, wasn't it? Like I'm wondering, are you one of the Russian bots trying to have a conversation now? Is that where we're heading?
Like Deuce Machine creepy though.
It's scary enough. I don't need that in my life right now. So let's talk a little bit about mental illness again and poverty. People with mental illness often live in chronic poverty. This is from CMHA, Canadian Mental Health Association Ontario website. Poverty can be a significant risk factor for poor physical and mental health. The relationship between poverty and mental illness is both straightforward and complex. Absolutely. It's key to the key is to addressing poverty in order to promote mental health and support the recovery of persons. So let's see here. What is poverty? Well, we know what poverty is here, so we'll skip this. But basically, when you're living poverty, you're living at your lowest level on the scale of basic needs, right? Because you're not focused on maybe even voting in the election. You're worried about where you're going to get your food tomorrow. You're worried about whether or not you're going to have enough money to get, on the bus to go to the food bank. You're worried about all kinds of things. What's not Russian, Chinese, happy to help. I'm sorry, I'm just reading what Show the Hairline said. So
I know.
like, if your basic needs aren't being met, and especially if you have other people you're trying to take care of at the same time, it can be incredibly stressful for people.
Well, you can't grow.
Exactly, you can't get to those higher, you're not going to be worried about, like people say, get a job. It's not that. You need to have some stability before you're in a place. You need to be able to shower and change your clothes. You need to be able to eat so that your head is on straight for an interview or to make a resume. Like, you need so many things before you can get there. It's not as easy as get a job, but that's a lot of people's response to people who are living in poverty or on the streets, right? And if you're on the streets, you can't just go get a job.
Well, it's really scary. I remember raising my daughter as a single mom
Mhm.
in the 80s when things were tough. I had no idea where my next meal was going to come from. I lived in government housing where I paid 10% of my income, which I was very lucky, but everything else was the same price as everyone else's. And it was scary. And you're right, you're not thinking about who to vote for. You're thinking about how am I going to put the food on the table and pay the rent. And it's really sad. Like, I did struggle, and I know many that also struggled, and we brought ourselves to a point where we're good. And now the government is trying to take us back there. It's just crazy, right? So I just think that everybody that we know has to get out there and vote. That we have to at least tell them. I know that there was one person for sure that I was able to turn around and now realizes that the Liberals are going to be, it's not the party anymore, it's the person. And they now know that Carney's got to be in, PP cannot, because he'll just hand us, yeah. And a lot of people, I'm sorry, I live in Alberta where there's a lot of tradespeople, I'm going to say. So with the trades, a lot of them went into the trades because they didn't want to go to university or anything else, and it was a quick way to make money, and they depend on oil. And for some reason, they all have this idea that if Carney wins, oil is going to be gone and their livelihoods are going to be gone. They're not understanding that oil is still going to be here. I work in the oil and gas industry, and I'm fighting for PP not to win, but they're not getting it. And that's the sad part.
Yeah, exactly. They're not getting it, and there's going to be a lot of job creation with this because somebody needs to get those houses up, right? So with the housing plan, there will be job creation as well in that industry. So people who work in the trades are going to have more work because we're going to be building more houses,
Right?
potentially.
But they're not getting it. They're not understanding that.
Exactly. And
What
oil
they
and
are,
gas, like I understand Alberta, oil and gas is important and I get that. But so we need to be prepared for when we run out someday. And maybe that won't be for 100 years. I don't know. But we can't keep relying on something that is a limited resource. Eventually, we aren't going to have it anymore.
But that's the people that can't see outside the box, right? They've got their blinders on. All they see is what's ahead of them. And that's oil and gas, which is pretty sad.
Well, that's what's keeping the payment now, but they're not thinking about their kids and their kids' kids.
And Addicted Bear, it has a good point. Trades is a wider amount of jobs, not just oil and gas. Exactly.
Plumbing, electricity, boiler making, like there's a lot. There's a lot out there.
Yeah.
So we need to keep that in mind. Yeah. And what else was I going to say? Just
sorry.
No, that's okay. We need to keep working on that. Yeah, and why people, let's go over this just for curiosity. Why people with serious mental illness often drift into poverty. They face barriers in their lifetime, including stigma and discrimination, and that's absolutely true. It can be harder to get a job, and it can be harder to get housing if you have, past landlord complaints because maybe of noise or other things, right? And it can prevent them from securing adequate education and employment. Experiencing a mental illness can seriously interrupt a person's education or career path, and I can speak from that from some of my own family, and results in diminishing opportunities for employment. A lack of secure employment in turn affects one's ability to earn an adequate income, therefore resulting in poverty, therefore adding to mental health concerns. So it all builds up on top of each other. Also, individuals with serious mental illness are frequently unable to access community services and support due to stigma, gaps in services, or challenges in the system navigation. Absolutely true. And just in case there's anyone here listening to this, call 211. They can help you with that, some of it, but there are still gaps. There are still gaps in the system. Lack of sufficient primary health care and community mental health support services, shortages of affordable housing, and inadequate income support further alienate them from the community. Income support is terrible. And I can only speak again for Alberta, but I don't think it's much better in the other provinces, in that the amount that they give you for housing is so small. Let's for curiosity's sake look this up. Do you have anything you want to add, either of you, while I do this? Support benefits chart.
Yeah, I want to point out that I think a lot of it too is, especially in Alberta, oil and gas disinformation.
Yeah.
That pumps up this rugged individuality, right? That it's all part and parcel to our exceptionalism, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're special, and we're not special. And I don't understand that. I'm Canadian first. I'm from Alberta, but I am a Canadian first, and I care about people in other parts of my country. It's not just about how oil and gas can benefit us. I believe we should be sharing between provinces. But let's.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This might be off topic, but I'm wondering if anybody else has this question. I heard Carney say a couple of times now, we're going to create just one economy, not 13. My understanding of that is we're all of Canada is going to have one economy. We're not going to be split up in provinces, economy-wise. Am I correct?
I don't know. I can't tell you the deeper meaning of that. I think the idea is to bring us closer together and trade better within the provinces, but I don't know if it's going to affect the idea of a single economy. I would have to look more into that, but I will, because that's an interesting point. I just wanted to mention housing. Monthly core benefits for people who are expected to work, for a single adult for private housing, and social housing you're not going to get. So I'm not like that. That's the two to six, I think it's a 4 to 6 year wait list in Alberta right now for social housing. It's $842 they give you as a single adult. Has anyone found an apartment for $842 lately? Because
gosh, no.
So where are you supposed
I
to
know
live on
that there's
$842?
So Jana, I know that in Calgary, I have a friend whose son is actually living. He's low income. He's actually living. He found a space. The house is owned, and there's like 18 suites or something, or 8 suites within the house.
Yeah.
They all have a common living area, and each person has their own bedroom, their own, like it's bedding and everything is supplied for them. The only thing they have to do is bring in their clothes and buy their own food.
Yeah.
And he's paying $800 a month. So if he was getting income support, he's looking at $42 a month to do other things other than pay his rent. $42 to eat.
Yeah. And that's the problem, is that what I know, like, let's talk about children. If you're a single adult with children, let's say you have 2 kids, the average family, 1,460. That's going to go entirely to your, like, again, can you find a 3-bedroom apartment in Edmonton right now or in Alberta for $1,460 in one of the cities? Probably not. And if you can, you still don't have much money for food. So what happens is people end up using the food and other portions, their core benefits, to pay for their housing, and then have no money left for food, for clothing, for any of those other needs that you have. It's expensive. It's expensive out there, and you've got to consider your medical and all that as well. So we don't pay enough right now for, like, the amount that we're giving for housing should reflect the market and the average value for apartments, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think that's reflective of our view on mental health, period. Because it's like, my parents were both on age. And I've noticed, especially with workers, not all, but they get to a point where they either burn out and they think that it's their pockets that are being picked by the imaginary welfare queens.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that mentality. I think it comes from them having to work and them looking down on people and thinking that they don't deserve this help.
Yeah.
Who are they to decide this? I don't know. But, I think that's in general, like, they're supposed to subside without any dignity for some reason.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. They should just be happy with the scraps that are given to them, whatever those are, and not complain about it. And that is frustrating that that's happening in our system. And again, if anybody wants to come up on the panel, we got 20 minutes left-ish to the show, and we're talking about poverty and mental health. Tapping is clapping. If you have a chance, please do tap your screen. It really helps get this live out to other people. Sharing is caring. If you can share this live to bring in more guests, that would be awesome. And if you can give gifts at least to the panelists, and any gifts that you give to us help us in Beaver Politics to do the work that we're doing, which is building this network. So there's my shameless plug for the moment. So yeah, like the income, it affects so many things, and I don't like, and mental health can make it really hard to keep a job. Some people, honestly, some people with disabilities, mental health or physical, are never going to be able to work, are never going to be able to hold a job, and they deserve a reasonable quality of life in Canada, right? Because it can happen to anybody. It's not just something that, like, it can happen for so many reasons. You can end up crashing out. Addiction can take over your life, and suddenly all your money's going there until you have none left. It can happen. And once you're there, it's really hard to get back up, right? And we need the services, and we need these a stable income that can get them a decent apartment to meet their needs at a price that is affordable within the amount of money they get. And that's where we're not right now. And it can be really hard. And Addicted Bear mentioned that they haven't been able to work due to mental health. Absolutely. Many people have been there. Depression is going to hit, 1 in 5 people is going to suffer from a mental health issue in their lifetime. So don't think that it can't happen to you. The loss of a family member can catapult you into a depression. There are many different things that can happen. For some people, it's genetic, but some people, it can be just life in general, can kick you in the butt. And you can end up, on the streets, or, nowhere to go, or living in your parents' basement. So if you're lucky, you have someone to fall back on. And not everybody is that lucky. Not everybody has family that can help them. So it's just really important to remember that mental health disabilities are disabilities, just like diabetes or bad hips, like they affect, or heart disease. It matters just as much, and we shouldn't be. And I worry right now because of what's happening in the States, and PP's use of terms like left-wing lunatics really bothers me, because it's re-stigmatizing. We've gotten so far with mental health, and now I feel like the right is re-stigmatizing the shit out of it. And
Well, that's what they have to do.
Mhm.
They, that they maintain that exceptionalism and bring that back to that.
Yeah,
But-
to like if it's not hurting me, if it's not affecting my life right now, I don't care about it attitude. Or the
I think, can I say something real quick to you?
Yeah, you go ahead.
It's about too how I think all of this is on a bell curve and we're on the wrong side of it. Like with taxing, like you can only tax your population so much. And the fact that there is no middle class, they've got to import it. And that's why it doesn't matter which government you're talking to, they're all needing to bring in immigrants, which creates housing crisis. And I don't care about who comes and goes. That's not my issue. But if you don't have anything set up for anybody, and what you're actually doing is making sure that the have-nots that are already here are shuffled underneath the rug, or even better, into for-profit prisons, that's the reality they want. This is crashing, and it's a diminishing return.
So what we really need to do is get more affordable housing built. And I'm curious to hear what Carney's plans are on immigration. It'll come up during the next few weeks, I'm sure.
It'll be the same. He has to. He has to replace that tax rate.
We need people. Well, we need people to fill jobs too, and what have you.
But they can't. They can't bring these jobs here. They just want us to be consumers. But if we don't have a middle class to work, they don't want to pay us these jobs. So that's why, you know what I mean? Like that, I think, is the reality no one's talking about.
Well, and that's where universal income would help with some of that, but also raising the minimum wage.
It's got to go to socialism. It has to. Or we're all just going to die like in some big fucking calamity.
Well, I don't think we're getting to socialism yet, but we're heading. Universal income would be a great step. We got to look at it in pieces,
No, yeah, that's what I mean, though. It's got to be socialist answers or something like that, because we've got to get away from this idea.
On his Addicted Bear mentioned affordable housing for Indigenous. Absolutely, we need affordable housing for everybody, and the minimum wage is abysmal. Like I don't understand why. A minimum wage should be enough money that you can live reasonably, like not like in a slum, but reasonably with the amount that you're getting, right? Your minimum wage should be able to pay an average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment at least. And right now it doesn't. Minimum wage should, and it should be 30%, because that's what they hold you to with mortgages is 30%. Your income, 30% of your income goes to housing. And then after that, you should have the other 70% for your other needs, food, clothing, exercise, and quality of life. But we're not there yet. Minimum wage does not pay people enough to do that.
Well, that's considered regulation of the market.
I know.
Can't do that.
I know. And that's the problem, is that we run into these roadblocks.
And that's what Carney's going to give too. And it sucks because we've gone so far right. We're not actually dealing with any of our social issues.
Yeah. Well, Carney, admittedly, is more of a centrist. I do think he is the right person right now.
No, I'm a Carney guy. I'm not saying that. I'm just, it sucks that we have to deal with a ridiculous racist instead of actually with trying to elect a progressive like somebody.
Well, it's actually kind of embarrassing for me for Canada that PP is even an option for anybody, because he's shown who he is. His obsession with John A. Macdonald, if that's not enough, I don't know what is. Because John A. Macdonald was a terrible person who accomplished things off the backs of other people. He didn't go out there and build the railroad himself. He pulled in Chinese immigrants, and a lot of them lost their lives, and they were in deplorable conditions, and they were paid half of what the YT people were paid. And they starved people off Indigenous lands to get the path for the railroad. Literally, people died.
We have a Samuel Doran who's on here saying LOL Carney is Trudeau. He's gone now. He had 24 followers.
Yeah.
See, this is what I mean about these guys. They just want to sabotage for what? Are they getting paid?
Honestly, I think some of the conservatives are to be
yes, they are.
Upfront, because they tell me I'm getting paid all the time and I'm not. So people tend to reflect, right, or project. They're projecting.
So Addicted Bear said, "I'm sorry, but Carney not being straightforward with what he's going to do with Indigenous and and then I don't know. And that's a possibility. Like what I've said to people that I know is this: with Pierre, PP, we know we're walking straight into the fire. There's no no doubt about that.
Yeah.
With Carney, we might be walking the gangplank. We don't know yet. Right? So we can only hope that he's going to do what's best for us.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm willing to walk the gangplank as opposed to jump into the fire.
Exactly.
We'll get stability with Carney. That's at
Carney-
least something.
Carney knows what he's doing economically, and right now we're in an economic crisis because of Trump.
Yeah,
So
he's
there is
gonna,
just
he's
no
the guy.
better person.
Like,
Right?
Yeah, and
So-
Carney does, like, I've been trying to read values, and I say trying not because it's not well written. It is really well written. He is a very smart man. It's because
Yes.
economics is not my area of expertise. But the idea is that Carney brings up again, and I'll talk about just the introduction, is that he values things besides the money. He values what money can do for people and for people
Right.
themselves, right? So his values, I don't think he's going to screw us over. Because it doesn't read with his personality and he's more pragmatic, you know, but he's got a lot more empathy than I've seen. I have not seen PP have any empathy towards anybody. I don't think he's capable.
one's a
he's-
corporatist and the other's an oligarch.
Exactly. PP wants to be in with the big boys. He wants to be in with the U.S. oligarchy, and so does Smith, Danielle Smith.
Yeah.
And they've made it very obvious. They make it very obvious. Yeah, and like Addicted Bear said, yeah, Carney is
Yeah,
my
she's
is
not
our sure
voting.
vote. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Carney.
I
Carney
think that's
knows
our
everything.
best bet right now. Mm-hmm.
Well, he is the right person at the right time for this job, and
Yeah.
and he, you know, he was probably making much more money in the private sector than he's going to be running our
Oh,
country.
100%.
He's doing, like, why is he doing this? He's doing it because he gives a shit. That's how I
He's
feel
the
about
only
it.
guy that probably could step in.
Yeah, he's the right guy. At the
I don't
right
know
time.
who else other than maybe Sean Fraser, and he didn't
Yep.
want it.
Yep, Sean Fraser would have been an option.
And I don't think he would have been as good.
No, neither do I. Not for this time.
Like,
I
it's
love
brilliant.
Sean Fraser. I love Charlie Angus. Like, there are people out there
Yeah.
that I adore, but I think that Carney
But
is
you
still
couldn't
the right-
point to any of them and say that Stephen Harper had raving endorsement
Yeah. Let's
to
give
seal that center right.
Addicted Bear here wanted to come up. Did you want to add to
Yep.
the conversation?
Hi.
Hey.
I get everybody is all Carney raw, but like as a white person myself, I have to sit back and think what is gonna do the better for Indigenous, because he has not spoke on that. He has not spoke on disability. He did his first little cabinet and he got rid of the inclusivity and the disabled like the people who spoke for me. So I get it. Everybody who's really smart is like, Carney's got the job. But I'm sorry. He doesn't speak for me yet.
As a
So
white
I think
far-
that is the key word. I'm hoping,
No.
Addicted Bear, that
No,
he
no.
says something in the next couple of weeks about the Indigenous. Because he seems to be releasing parts of his
Not
plan a
just
little at a
that he's
time.
not.
Yeah, because I want
I
to hear
get
what he
he's
has to say.
speaking for white people, but he's not speaking for the Indigenous. And Trudeau did. That's why I voted for Trudeau. He got water he did 80% of their water. He went and he did a lot of things for Indigenous and for the 2S LGBTQ plus age. And he was working on, I'm not voting conservative. That's not what I said. I'm just not saying that I'm going to be 100% Carney
That's fair.
if he's
I
not going to
understand
do
what
it
your
for me.
reservations
And
are. I'm going to be
especially
meeting, for what it's worth, I'm going to be meeting my the person running in my area tomorrow, and I'm going to ask them specifically about this to see if they can give me any information.
because I'm going to call the locals here too and ask why they're not being straight up and saying, because
You should email
we're
them
sick
and
of hearing
tell them.
we're going to do another study on the basic income. They've been doing a study since before 2019. Like, as a disabled person in Canada, I'm sick of doing petitions for them to like end up on the bottom of the pile. I want straight answers. And if they're not going to do it, why should, like, I'm in Alberta and I'm in like southern Alberta. So like the con idiots are big here. I'm not voting conservative. But I cannot throw my vote behind a guy, and I'm not voting NDP right now either. I'm sorry. Somebody said he's spoken on the Indigenous people.
Yeah, but not voting.
Sorry.
on
I'm
it,
looking
you
right
think
now
it
to
is.
see if that's true. I'm just doing a quick Google search.
I'm pretty sure he has said something, but I can't.
Yeah, he could speak on it, but unless they're gonna guarantee it, oh,
I think my feeling with Carney right now is I'm very confident he's not going to backtrack anything. It's what is he going to do himself? Whereas in
It'd be
PP
a lot
wants to
friendlier.
backtrack. PP wants to bring us back. He wants to cut the red tape, which to building things, which he means Indigenous rights, and that is scary. That is a scary thing. So,
PP's having imaginary conversations with statues of Sir Johnny MacDonald.
exactly.
It's insane.
yeah, I'll never vote conservative ever again, ever. But
I'm
like
not
in
finding
my
anything on
area
Carney
right
speaking about
now,
Indigenous yet. But I'm like I said, he's unveiling his plan a little at a time. So I'm really hoping he does because it's an important issue and we need to hear about it. So I will
sure.
ask tomorrow for what it's worth, Addicted Bear, and I'll get back to you if I get any information.
I appreciate that, and that's why I came up, because I know you have like the in.
I don't know if I have
And
an
like,
in, but I will find
well,
what I can.
compared to me, I don't
Yeah.
have an in anywhere.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna-
after what they did to Jessica, NDP has totally frosted the disabled community.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
they
haven't
lost
really
mine.
liked Jagmeet's latest. The couple of times he's posted on TikTok where he's getting he's spreading lies actually about Carney or misinformation, and that's just PP already does that. I don't need another person doing that. It doesn't look good on him. And I'm a swing voter. I'm a swing voter to a certain extent, especially provincially. I tend to vote NDP. And I would consider NDP federally. If they had the right platform, I would consider them. So he lost my respect there. It just, that
Mine
kind of
too.
hate campaign doesn't look good on him.
And if you phone and complain, they just write it down and do nothing. Because I've been complaining about that for a couple of years now.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't fit him well. And I like him a lot, but I don't like what he's done recently with the campaign. And I get that
wonder
they're
if it's a
desperate. I
donor
get that
thing.
they're scared because they might lose party status in this whole thing. But he's not going to get voters back by talking down the Liberals. Right? It's
You
like, it's
could
kind of like
email
beating up
the
your
NDP.
brother or something. Like it's,
I think he's trying to
I've
separate himself
emailed,
from
I've called,
liberals
they do
somehow.
nothing.
Yeah, he is trying to separate, but
Sorry.
it's not the way to do it.
No, I know.
I
What
I
he should
agree
do
with
is
you,
go further
Jana.
left. He needs to go farther
Yeah.
left than Carney, and that should be his campaign, is to be
But has anybody noticed it seems like it's all the NDP? Like Sarah Jam is doing the same thing. Why? Like, is it a donor thing for them? Maybe.
doing
No,
what?
wait, Sarah, isn't that the one that left and was pushed out?
I thought she was running. Or who was the one who was running for provincial NDP? That was exactly like Bonnie
She
Crombie.
became an independent because they pushed her out because she said pro-Palestine.
You might be right, but I thought I can't remember what her name was then. But like I just finding that if they're trying to be more like a liberal party, and that's I think why they're not doing well.
That's their mistake. They need to go further left. They need to go back to their grassroots.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
But I think Jagmeet would like to, from what I understand of him personally. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't. It's like them kicking Trudeau out of the party for being too left. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are at
The
time,
money
guys.
wants it go right.
I hate to shut her down, but we're at time, so I'm gonna
Oh,
do
Jana,
the ending.
no.
Let me see if I've got
Thanks for
my
having me.
shtick. Thank you guys for being on the show. I'm just gonna go over our shows for the rest of the week. really quickly here. So after this show, we have Radicalized, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. And he talks about the gray matter of politics and how religion is impacting the political hemisphere. Then we have The Undamned on Sunday, and that is hosted by Zen and Urban Jetta, and that is 9:30 Pacific, 10:30 Mountain, and 12:30 Eastern. And they focus on the unhoused issues, so it's a great place to have that conversation as well. And solutions encouraging political will, leadership, and collaboration among community and local programs. Tomorrow night we have A Damn Happy Life with our host Happy. That is 2:30 Pacific, 3:30 Mountain, and 5:30 Eastern. And he talks about success, accountability, and happiness, moments of inspiration, epiphanies, or a change in direction that impacts people, happiness and people. And then on Monday, we have Indigenous Matters. Oh, no, we have, I'm not sure if it's starting this Monday, but I think it is. We have Veterans Affairs, hosted by Salish, I hope I'm pronouncing that wrong, 1 p.m. Pacific. And his content is veterans issues in military education. Then we have Indigenous Matters at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's Treaty 6 Birder. They were here earlier, very knowledgeable on Indigenous matters, and they talk about the effects of political on Indigenous communities and how Indigenous people can affect the political structure. On Tuesdays, we have NewsHour with Frontline Feminist, incredibly knowledgeable about all of the news going on out there. It's a great place to just listen and get caught up for the week. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And they highlight the biggest news from the weekend or news you might be missing and bring it to the forefront. Then on Wednesday, we have the Mossy Side with the Progressive Moose. We may be having someone fill in for them this week. It is going to be at 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and he talks about the messy side of politics, doing deep dives into weekly topics. And then on Thursdays, we have 3 shows. We have Finding Your Own Damn Day, Your Own Damn Way, with the host, the Missus, and that is 2 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Eastern. And it's education, resources, and solutions to assist people to navigate the Canadian political landscape. And then we have Truth Through Discourse with Mrs. Radical and Frontline Feminist. And this has been really a hot show lately. They've had some really good topics. 6 p.m. Mountain Standard, 8 p.m. Eastern. And weekly discussions on relevant news topics and social issues. And then in the evening at 10 p.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, we have Pixie Lee hosting. And it is the night show. And she talks about BIPOC perspectives, political reflections, and current events in a humorous fashion. And then on Friday, I'm almost done, the Rainbow Connection. Love to see more people in this one. It's a really great show. It's Sean and the Pasty Native. They're on at 10:30 Mountain, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time on Fridays, and they do 2S plus LGBTQ issues, legislation, and personal testaments. Then in the evening, we have Poly Talk, Flitty Talk with Frontline Feminist, and that is 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's weekly debates. So if you're on the right and you're in our comments right now, this is somewhere you can come, and they do bring up people to debate. So debates on politics, social issues, focusing on Canada, the United States, and the geopolitical world in general. So there you have it. Those are all of our shows. Thank you so much to everybody that's been here today, and thank you for any gifts that you've given and any tapping. We really appreciate it. And I will be back next week. Talk to you then. Bye, everyone.